We have now got the last of our three speakers in this particular section, and I want to introduce Christy Kingston because she's important in this story because she's coming from the farming sector, but much broader than that. Where are you, Christy? Oh, good-o. I'm just making sure you're in the room. You know, that there wasn't another sort of, because we can't control everything, can we? I've had the pleasure of interacting with Christy on a number of occasions. She's both a farmer with her partner and family in a cropping and merino wool farm in Gamalling in Balladong Noongar country. But she goes well beyond that because she is also looking at how do we reimagine the future for WA and for our children, grandchildren and all other generations coming, because that's what we need to be doing. It's not about us, it's about all of us and into the future. So Christie is a director on Farmers for Climate Action and also a committee member for Ag Zero 2030, which is a terrific collaboration here in WA associated with the Farmers for Climate Action. She's also a climate reality leader. So please welcome Christy Kingston. You can stand here, and if you're going to use it.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. It's just so lovely to be here on Wajak Budja, and I want to pay respect to elders past, present and future and say that I really admire the intergenerational care built into First Law and its understanding of the interconnectedness of everything. And I love the Danju Coolin vision of caring for everything. So today I'll be inviting you to reimagine the power and extent of your impact and also reimagine what we can imagine. So how did this bee come to be on this sweet-smelling sandalwood blossom on my farm in Gamalling on Balladong Budja? So part of the short answer to that is that I planted the tree. I've planted sandalwoods all over the farm and hundreds are growing now, when a decade ago there were only 3. That bee had that blossom to be on because of people like you in land care and coast care, the example that you set and the inspiration that you provide. In 1983 or 84 or something, I was a little kid and we helped plant trees. That was inspiring. In 1997 or so, my 3-year-old son at the time and me helped the Friends of Trig Bushland with some planting. And since 2004, when I moved from Perth to the farm after meeting my husband Anthony, I've helped build upon years of land care work done by the Ucardi catchment group there. So I'm just one of many people who are so grateful for and inspired by you and your care. And so yesterday, Anthony and I collected a little thank you gift, some sandalwood seeds. They're at the back, and I can teach you how to plant them later. And we've seen some beautiful examples today of the special places and species that you love and protect. And I want you to imagine the ripple effects of your love and your protection and your care. Volunteers who may have helped you once and you never saw them again. People who you've never met and you will never, but they know about your work and they've seen what you've done, and who knows what you've inspired, who you've inspired to care for country somewhere. So the opportunities for connection and contribution to nature, including people, that you provide inspires more land care beyond your patch, and the ripple effects of your work restore landscapes more widely than you realise. So just please keep up the great work. So Noongar Budja, the southwest corner of WA, is an ancient land surrounded by ocean and desert, where thousands of unique species had lots of time to evolve together in diverse, connected communities. And we know that the first peoples here held and passed down knowledge of these connected communities, and that they lived by a vision, a law of caring for everything. And they knew, and they still know, that when you care for and love country, it cares for and loves you. And we heard that from Adam too, didn't we? So almost 200 years ago, people came here who didn't understand that, and they didn't know how to care for here, and many showed little or no respect, or worse, for the first peoples here. So by the late 1800s, on stolen land, the farm I live on now began. So here's my husband Anthony with a tree that would have been cut down last century to drag over and clear Banksia shrubland. So all over Australia, land clearing, introduced species, over-exploitation, changed fire regimes, pollution and climate change harmed nature, including people. And I'm deeply sorry. And I acknowledge my place in it. And I see the culture that made it possible. There's my baby girl. So there's a tiny map of our farm up the top there, and a tiny list of some of the land care work done on our farm since Anthony's dad bought the farm in 1963. And don't worry if you can't read it, all the words on the next slides. It's deliberately small because it's nothing special. We're not doing much that other farmers aren't doing. And here's a long, incomplete list, a never-ending list of just some of the things that Anthony and I would love to do more of and get better at. And here are just some of the resources that we need to do more and better land care. And we don't have all those resources. So the extent and effectiveness of our land care work is limited. So, like all of you land care work groups, we seek help to get more done. The best land care work that was done on our farm together with us was by an organisation that focused on restoration projects at broader catchment levels. And this organisation was super easy to work with, incredibly knowledgeable, but sadly they always struggled to get enough funding to do their important work. So we personally haven't heard from this organisation for a while. I've heard that they're doing revegetation now for a big polluter who are buying up land to offset a tiny fraction of their massive emissions so that they can continue to emit and open up more gas fields. And that is the system that we're in. I personally don't want to fund land care on our farm by providing so-called offsets to companies who have no interest in heading for zero emissions as soon as possible. Anyway, imagine what if we and everyone, imagine we could all get all the land care work done that we wanted to, land care wise. We had the funding, we could get it done. But climate change and its many cascading impacts increasingly burns or cooks or floods your work or blows it away. And what about life all around the world? So 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming above pre-industrial average temperatures means 70 to 90% of coral reefs will be lost. So 6% of insects, 8% of plants and 4% of vertebrates will lose more than half of their range, and at 2 degrees it's worse. 99% of coral reefs, 18% of insects, 16% of plants, and 8% of vertebrates. So that's why I'm into climate care. Climate care beyond what I've done as an individual, at work and in groups. I've done climate care in the past as a Shire councillor and as a director of Farmers for Climate Action. In 2019, I helped start the volunteer group, Ag Zero 2030. Ag is short for agriculture. Zero 2030 is for our net zero emissions by 2030 goal. So the imagination bit. The goal started in someone's imagination who had the courage and the trusted relationships to say it out loud, which let other people get on board. And no one knew precisely how we'd achieve the goal. We knew that the answers would emerge from the collective over time. And I stole that phrase from Danju Coolin. Our collective vision for a small piece of our future is changing our sector now and possibly having ripple effects outside of agriculture too. And we didn't have to start from scratch. We looked around for all the good things emerging and encouraged people in our sector to notice and talk about them. What's going well? Why do people care about this? Who's addressing climate change well? And how and why? The conversation links up with conversations and work around landscape restoration, of course, as well, and biodiversity too. And so we help people feel like this is who we are and this is where we're heading, and it feels good to face these challenges together. And so our goal and our movement attracts more people and organisations to climate care. So success for us at Ag Zero would mean that we no longer have to exist because our goals are embedded in our sector. So some pushback from some people in our industry helped us be able to raise awareness of the economy-wide emissions in WA, that's on the left, and Australia on the right. So yellow, that's us in agriculture. We want to shrink those emissions relative to our food and fibre production. Our emissions cycle on the surface of the planet. Dark green Dark green at the bottom below zero is drawdown of carbon from air into the landscapes, and we want to see this increase, but it will not be able to offset all of WA's energy emissions, all the global emissions. The big red chunk, energy emissions from the extraction, production, transport and burning of ancient carbon that had been buried for hundreds of millions of years. So electricity and transport are included there in the red, and a big chunk of that is also from the WA's gas industry, or on the WA side, but anyway. So clearly, if we want that to get to zero, massive reductions in energy emissions are needed. And the obvious first step to me, and probably to you, would be for to start by not adding more emissions with new projects. So Australia and WA must reduce emissions by about 75% by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2035 to play our part in global efforts for a chance at limiting global warming to 1.5. Now think of all those coral reefs. And again, yep. So human-caused global warming so far was caused by greenhouse gas emissions emitted in the past that are still up there in the atmosphere. So net zero only refers to balancing this year's emissions with this year's drawdown. Net zero doesn't address the past emissions that caused climate change. Net zero is not a complete solution. So back to reimagining. What are we even allowed to hope for? What are we free to imagine? So our imagination can sometimes get squished by what's going on around us. For example, global warming won't stop increasing until after net zero is achieved globally. So net zero by 2050 means let's make things worse until after 2050. Imagine that. It's not cool. Our kids and their future grandkids deserve better. So without heartfelt commitment and action this decade, net zero is actually a very dangerous and delaying distraction. So another example, 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius are hard won but unsafe political targets that the world is not even on track to meet. These political targets imply that more global warming is acceptable. It's not. Nature, including people, and land care, and food security are already suffering from just 1.1 degrees Celsius global warming so far. And the political target is to increase global warming. What, is that really the best we can hope for? We can update a political target, and it starts with people like you and me imagining a more ambitious social target. So imagine if reversing global warming was our social target and public demand turned it into a political target. Policies and plans would need to change if the target was 0 degrees above pre-industrial temperatures. Not adding new emissions would be a no-brainer. The focus would be on drawing down past emissions. Australia's Emissions Reduction Fund and the carbon market more broadly wouldn't operate like an emissions continuation fund. So I've had enough of climate change. So my social target, I'm for reversing global warming. What's your social target? So I realise climate change is just one symptom of a bigger problem though, and that is a culture that has death to nature by 1,000 cuts built in. So before I finish up, here's something I think is really important to imagine. Back one, sorry. Danju Kulin's vision of caring for everything. We have to think, what does that mean? What would it look like? Where's it all already happening? And how does that idea grow? Let's keep working in our own patches, but also let's help a culture of caring for everything re-emerge here and plant that idea in imaginations everywhere. And plant those sandalwood seeds too. So I'll just finish by telling you how to plant the sandalwood seeds that are at the back. They need a good sandy soil and loam, and they need a nitrogen fixing host plant to live near, like a wattle or an acacia. So all you need to do on Anzac Day is rub the outside off and plant the seed a couple of inches deep. It's that easy. The mammals that used to do this work, they used to bury the seeds, they're gone from many places now. So we human mammals need to plant the seeds. So I just want to quickly plug that my friend Richard McClellan will be on Landline on the weekend talking about how sandalwood's going extinct in the wild, and it should be listed as threatened, and that wild harvesting needs to end, and harvesting should only happen on plantations, and sandalwood needs to be restored on country. So please plant your sandalwood seed and grow a beautiful drought-tolerant, potentially long-lived tree, and then give its seeds away to other people to plant, and that's ripples. And courageously use your power like lives depend on it, because they do. And I want to thank you for caring a lot.